We're going to talk about robotics, but more broadly, this idea of physical AI. We've just stepped into a new age of automation, one driven by multiple forms of AI, including generative AI. And in many ways, by the end of the decade, we'll see the physical manifestation of automation. And in many cases, that's going to be in the form of robotics. Robotics specifically is going to probably quadruple in size from maybe a $70 billion segment to $200 or $300 billion segment by 2030. But broadly speaking, automation and robotics are going to transform many sectors of employment. So what we want to talk about today is what are the implications for K-12 pathways, specifically how and where should we be introducing mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, computational thinking. And then more broadly, I want to talk about how robotics can really contribute to powerful learning experiences. And we're going to do that with our friends from St. Vrain Valley and Tacoma Public Schools, where we have seen really powerful learning take place, where young people are working collaboratively and creatively to do problem solving in complex environments. And it's probably the reason we're gathering today is just the inspiration that we've seen in Tacoma and St. Vrain for the powerful experiences that can introduce kids to their future. We're going to start with our friend Ritch Ramey. I met Ritch probably 11 or 12 years ago when he was helping to stand up Ramtech, which was quickly the best robotics training program in America. And it was unique because it was at a career center, Tri-Rivers Career Center in Ohio. And it was for high school students, college students, and working adults. And Ritch introduced me to the first 3 young men that had been FANUC and Motoman certified. And that program ended up scaling across the state of Ohio. And Ritch really gave me my modern introduction to robotics and robotics education. Ritch will give us a kind of an overview of where the market is headed and what's happening in robotics education. Then we're going to talk to Axel Reitzig from St. Vrain, probably the biggest and best robotics education district in America with a lot of award-winning teams. They just had another national champion at First Robotics 2 weeks ago, and Axel's really been the driving force behind that. Then we'll hear from our friend Adam Kulaas in Tacoma Public Schools, which is also doing really cool things at a number of sites, and Adam and team are planning a brand new facility right in the heart of Tacoma. And so we've got a great outline ahead. Comments, chats, suggestions, welcome. Ritch, I'll let you kick things off. Give us an overview of what's going on in robotics and robotics education.
Well, I appreciate it, Tom. I just want to thank Mason and Tom and Getting Smart for allowing me to be a part of this great program today. I'm very proud to kick off this program as a representative of A3. As Tom was saying, I met him a few years ago and he toured Ramtech, and he graciously put our facility kind of on the map by putting us in his book at the time, and as one of the leading facilities for training in robotics and automation in the United States. And from that standpoint, we were able to build 23 career centers, spent about $24 million in funding to build, centers that were doing K-to-grade training for robotics and automation. So a lot of you are doing a lot of great things that we were doing at the time, Vex and First and Legos and Makey's and all kinds of things we were taking out, trying to get students inspired to go into this great field. Now my job with the Association for Advancing Automation, I'm a director of education. And A3 has more than 1,350 members worldwide. It's the largest professional organization in the world that promotes robotics, automation, machine vision, AI, and advanced manufacturing. And so our association has thousands and thousands of members. If you look at inside within these 1,350 companies and institutions, leading ones were like NVIDIA, Fanuc, Motorman, General Motors, General Electric, Boeing. They're all members. Anybody's doing automation because they see a need from our organization to promote robotics and automation, but also on the safety side of it to make a safer workplace and also to upscale their many members. And as the next upcoming thing we're doing, automate, the sales comes out of that as well. So our next big focus will be Automate, this Detroit in May. It's North America's largest trade show, and we'll have thousands and thousands of people come through, but the entire convention center is sold out. So if you're interested in robotics, it's the place to be. Robots are picking up Corvettes, but even the latest mobile robotics, humanoid robotics, all those will be there. And then we have a few other major events coming up that will be interesting for some of you potentially. Is our Focus Intelligent Vision and AI conference in Seattle in September. And just 2 years ago, we were told by our organization members that humanoid robots aren't a thing for manufacturing. And then we had our first humanoid robot forum last fall in Memphis. We're having another one in Seattle. And I just saw today where one of the leading investment corporations said that they expect $25 trillion in humanoid robot sales by 2050. And that's $25 trillion, which is a huge amount of money heading in.
It's not just Elon that's excited about humanoid robots, right? This is a real deal.
A lot of major companies. Now, our robotics companies, of course, a human is not the ideal working mechanism in a factory. So humanoids may sound great for some of the things we do, but there's some really great processes out there that I don't know if the humanoid robot can take over, but hey, we don't know. That's 25 years away. So with AI, who knows what the world will be like then. Our International Robot Safety Conference, one of our major ones as well. And then, we're the leaders, subject matter experts in manufacturing. In AI, we've had courses we've developed. Safety, we're the boilerplate for safety for robotics and mobile robotics. And we've run grants. We're Department of Labor. We're one of the major suppliers of statistics in the country as well. For anything robots, if you're interested, we have a statistic for you. So you can go on our website and find it. If not, you can email me and I'll hunt them down for you. Our 1,350 members, we get together annually and we ask them, what's the upcoming trends or what are the concerns you have right now about robotics? And from year to year, we've heard forever that robots take jobs. And if you look at the red line on here, the red line is unemployment rate. The blue bars are the sales in robotics. And if you look at sales, as unemployments went up, sales went down. As sales went up, unemployments went down. So it's really the inverse of what you hear a lot of. And we've got, the data to prove it. And one of the things that I can't say enough about is if a company doesn't automate, they will perish. They need to automate to stay current, to keep, existing workforce working. And with the huge shortage of workers today, what you end up doing is reskilling your workforce. If there's a task that a robot takes over, they've got a spot for that worker somewhere else because there's a huge shortage of that.
Rich, I'll note that what's going to be different about the next 10 years is that we're going to overlay digital automation on top of physical automation, and that may change this curve. So we want to keep an eye out for that. But your point is an important one, that historically, physical automation hasn't led to massive unemployment. But just noting that we're in brave new territory, we have layers of automation coming right at us.
When we have a shortage of workers, we're looking at about 1 million that we're short right now. We've got to fill those voids somewhere, that workforce. Automation seems to be able to do that for us. The North American sales trend line, since 2010, we've seen a growth up or down a little bit every year. But if you look at the curve at sales and robotics, it's going every year. And one of the things, too, that we don't talk about enough is robot density. That's the amount of robots per 10,000 workers. United States is 10th in the world in robot density. Number one is China. China continues, and South Korea both have a huge emphasis on automation. And you think of the largest countries in the world, largest country in the world wants to automate with the amount of workforce they have, that they see the need for automation, not only for the workforce, but robots are so much more accurate in what they're able to do and accomplish. No restroom breaks, and they're able to do things more accurately, more precise for the most part, is what we hear from most of our industry people. And when it comes to quality control, safety, and the dark, dirty, dangerous jobs, obviously we don't want humans doing those. So there's an ideal place for a robot to go through. This one here shows the difference between automation, between non-auto industry and auto industry. As you can see, the auto industry led the way for a long time. But right now we're seeing in ag and food, warehousing industries, service industry, we're seeing a big increase in robotics right now. And mobile robotics are really taking off for warehousing and a lot you see at Amazon, different companies out there. They're expecting to have 5 million mobile robots sold within 5 years, which is a huge upswing on mobile robotics. When we asked our 1350 members plus, what's their biggest challenges right now? Inflation, supply chains, tariffs were the biggest concern they had in January, and the lack of skilled workforce. The year before, it was the lack of skilled workforce. So the uncertainty is a little worrisome for some of them right now, because if you think about the robots made in North America, there are really no robot companies in North America. Most of our robots are assembled here, but they're really from foreign countries. So parts coming in are coming in from other countries. That's one of the big things on the supply chain. And then, of course, the lack of skilled workers, the cost of high initial investment, technology, market acceptance, regulatory challenges are always going to be a problem. But you look at the major two up there, it's economic uncertainty and lack of skilled workers. And then when we look at orders, they're going to continue to go up. We had a little bit of a slide last year, but towards the end of the year, we had an uptick in robot sales in North America. And we saw that increasing January, February, March. And then number one for robot orders is material handling, still, and welding is number two. And then we look at the growth, the green growth up here. Look at the increase in food, life sciences, pharma, biomed, automotives, still there, but look at the food and consumer industry. Anything that palletizes and has large orders seems to be taking off in the automation field. A lot of great things going on in warehousing right now and in agriculture and construction. Then the humanoids. There's a lot of companies out there with humanoid robots right now. We haven't really seen a lot of them in the manufacturing sector being used yet, but that's not saying that Amazon and other companies haven't already had ideas for installing them into their organizations. So we should be interested in the next 12 months what happens with humanoid robots. And then I think the last thing I have here is the mobile robot forecast. If you look at this forecast, look at 2027, 26, and 25. We're looking at huge upturns in mobile robotics. And, traditionally, like you'd go to these old factories and you'd have these AGVs going around. If you got in the AGV's way, automated guided vehicle, it'd stop. With the AMRs, they map a facility and they, with LiDAR and everything they have on them, they can reroute, get where they need to go, as long as they're programmed well. And right now, with our safety standards, we're seeing a pretty safe AMR group right now out there.
That's a great statistic, Rich. Remember when we met 10 years ago, almost all the robotics were fixed robotics, right? They were assembly line fixed and limited capability. And now 10, 12 years later, we're talking about super capable mobile robotics. Axel and Adam will both talk about the drones and autonomous vehicles. So just
I call the AMRs with the robot on top of them a free range robot, because they can come in. I saw it 5 years ago. They brought a mobile robot in, mapped our big robotic facility, in 5 minutes, and that robot would go around that facility and not hit anything. Well, you put a robot on top of that now, and you have a, Type C robot with an industrial robot on it. There's a lot can be done with one of those. It's almost something out of the Jetsons or Star Wars. I appreciate the time today, Tom. It's great being able to talk to everybody. And, I've done VEX and FIRST Robotics in the past. There's 2 million students right now in the pathway between Project Lead the Way, VEX, and FIRST alone in robotics. And so we're excited as an organization to help with those organizations to get those 2 million students. Hopefully, a lot of them come into our A3 members and come to work for our organizations. And if you're interested, come to Automate. There's a free educators day there on the 14th.
14th of May. If
14th
you're
of May.
anywhere near Detroit, it'd be a great place to be. All right, hang around if you can, Rich, but we got 2 great examples coming up. Our friend Axel from St. Vrain, congrats again. You had another team win first national championship a couple weeks ago. Axel, why are you so excited about robotics?
Well, I could take up the whole hour. I would say so. Most of my presentation will be about the way our district has developed a district-wide robotics program and how that, I think, is then creating this workforce that we're talking about to support all these advancements, which are really coming up in a fast and powerful way. Really, it's about 13 or so years ago that we as a district really started doing things as a system to support robotics education. I had the chance to kind of start doing robotics a couple of years earlier when I've been asked to be a STEM education elective teacher at the middle school level. And once I was introduced to robotics, and mind you, I had no background in engineering or STEM other than maybe instructional technologies. But once I discovered robotics through participating in Best Robotics, it was clear to me that robotics was the perfect disruptive innovation that we needed to really change education, the direction we wanted to go. And, all the discussion at the time was 21st century skills, authentic learning, student-led learning, authentic tasks, collaboration, right? I can go on and on. Robotics just naturally, again, competitive robotics in this context, but really was the perfect way to do that. So that's a big part of my journey.
I want to underscore that comment. You view this robotics not only as a pathway linked to employment opportunity, but as a uniquely powerful way to create great learning experiences for kids. Fair?
That's very fair.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you saying that. The way my thinking has formed over these 13 years is like the idea of a funnel, right? And we know that even if kids stay at the top of the funnel, a lot of what they learn and experience through doing some type of robotics will transfer to help them be successful later on in life. But for those kids who really deep dive and go down that funnel to some way or another, maybe humanoid robotics or AMRs, that gives them that competitive advantage that I'm going to talk about here in a second. So want to contextualize the work we've done and the successes we've had over the last few years by talking about our district. And then I'll talk also about the Innovation Center and how we are doing robotics, but then also within the district overall. And really the theme that kind of I hope runs through my presentation is how, to your point there, Tom, how robotics really advances our overall mission and our strategic priorities. Again, both as a district and as a program. St. Vrain Valley School District is where I'm at. We are Colorado's 7th largest district. We have around 33,000 students and we're growing. Our grow up plans are about in 25 years to double that amount of kids. So that's a lot of growth we're projecting. We're north of Denver. We're close to Boulder. So there's sort of a Boulder, Longmont, Denver triangle, I guess you could say, that has a lot of high tech. So we are situated really well to benefit from the industries that are in our area doing this kind of work. We are geographically large. We cover 412 square miles, which can be a challenge, but it represents a different kind of diversity. We serve around 8 different municipalities. We are comprised of 2 counties primarily, and they are the opposite ends of the social and political spectrum. You can imagine what kind of conversations might come out of that. And currently we have about 60 schools and programs that we serve. So within that, well, here's our mission statement. This is, if you know our superintendent, you will have heard him say this a bazillion times. But we want kids to, Tom's laughing, we want kids to graduate with competitive advantage so they can succeed on the global stage. So I want you to remember this because Again, over the last 4, 5, 6 years, this is what we're seeing robotics providing our students. It's really amazing. And robotics is so well aligned with this particular mission. And just to let you know too, here's our strategic priorities. This is the way that our district is pursuing or building out that vision. And there's 4 of these that really are relevant to our robotics work, strong and visionary leadership. So we've got a lot of really strong leaders across the district and community members who are helping lead that work. We need outstanding teachers and staff, of course. Doing robotics can be very demanding. Need to communicate and collaborate well. That includes with parents, corporate partners, higher ed, and obviously it relates to cutting edge technology and innovation. So at least 4 of these building blocks for our strategic priorities are advanced through our work in robotics. And I think that's why our leadership really has bought into it. Now, Innovation Center, here's some information about us. We are essentially a STEAM hub for St. Vrain. We do serve all 33,000 students. So that means from preschool to actually kids in grades 14, because they're doing concurrent enrollment classes. That's a pretty sizable mission that we've got. We have 10 focus areas, and they mostly focus on emerging technologies, but not all. We have artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, robotics, aviation, bioscience, video arts, entrepreneurship, digital design and virtual reality. We're starting up a music innovation pathway. We also have what we call P-Teach, which is a teaching pathway to develop that teaching workforce. So that's a great one. And we kind of created a formula that is, I think, very successful at, again, going back to the idea of the funnel, to give a lot of kids a lot of exposure, so to explore, and then through that exploration, start to develop interests and passions that then we can kind of start providing more targeted education to. And then through that, get them to understand and make some career connections and thinking of themselves as being people, going into a particular career that relates to fields that are connected to robotics. And so they get deep experiences to make informed decisions before they graduate about this is what I want to do. And underwriting all that work are partnerships. So that's kind of a nutshell, the Innovation Center model. And I really believe in this. I think it's very powerful and works very well. You can see here's our mission statement. And, I think it's pretty aligned to our district mission and also captures that hub kind of role that we have, not only within the district, but within the community. So here's robotics in St. Vrain. Same thing, you'll see in our tagline, excellence by design. So we take that to heart. We try not to leave anything up to chance. So robotics by design. We early on created a leadership team and then created a document called Robotics by Design, which is linked to this document or this slide here, which mapped out our vision and a pathway to enact that vision. So you can see what our goal was here. Again, we want kids to be able to compete on that global stage. And so competitive robotics has really been that tip of the spear. And you'll see what I mean by that too, but it's been so fruitful for us to participate in things like VEX and FIRST Robotics. So VEX Robotics is our biggest competitive program. When we started 13 years ago, we had maybe 20-ish teams across 3 or 4 schools. This year we had 265 teams, K-12, that's over 1,000 students. And that's at almost every school in the district, so probably about 54 out of our 60 schools. We ran 20 regular season tournaments and we ran all 4 state tournaments. That's 24 tournaments. So as a result, we have 21 teams going to Worlds. Over the last 3 or 4 years, that's roughly what we've had going on an ongoing basis. And last year, we also had a 2024 World Champions that won the High School Excellence Award, which is the top award for VEX. So I like to think of this as a big robotics academy. Then we, of course, have FIRST Robotics, and there's a program called Upper Creek Robotics that you may be familiar with them. Very, very successful. This year, they had one FRC team of about 70 students. They were semifinalists at the Worlds. One FTC team with 12 students, and they were world champions this year. 6 Lego League teams with about 38 students, so they're kind of building that base. And they do summer camps as well. And not only did they win this year, but it's 2 or 3 years ago, they also won 2 additional world championships. So just between VEX and FIRST, we've had 4 world champion teams out of St. Vrain. So that's a real point of pride for us. We also do, crazy enough, mate robotics, which probably sounds really crazy because we're in the middle of Colorado. But we have been running a regional for MATE. That's the Marine Advanced Technology Education.
Oh, that's the underwater one.
Correct. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes, it's underwater robotics.
Yeah.
Which
It is wonderfully ironic that in Longmont, Colorado, you're running underwater robotics championship.
yeah. Yeah, I think Adam, you're on the coast, so probably this is something which is supernatural for you. But what we're finding is that there are actually a lot of applications for, different like, water municipality organizations and things like that too. We did host the World Championships 2 years ago, so we had 73 teams from 13 countries.
Yeah.
So that was a really great way to highlight the community. And then here's a tangential one, but related, especially going to the opening remarks around physical AI or embodied AI. That we're doing a lot of work around AI. And one competition our students participate in is WACI, the World AI Competition for Youth. And in the last 3 years, they have placed first place, third place, and second place. So these competitions, again, are the tip of the spear. They really allow us to generate excitement and get stakeholder buy-in. And then what that lets us do is then, I should go back to this too, but what this has let us do is really clarify our thinking on the value of robotics. So early on, there was a lot of questions from our leadership. It's like, well, it looks like a fun after-school activity, but why should we continue to invest resource? Because it is resource intensive. But we came up with these pillars of robotics, and these would probably we refine these, I think, if we had a chance to look at them today. But this is what we came up with to explain to our stakeholders. This is what kids get out of doing robotics. It's not just some kind of fun activity. It's like deep, meaningful work that they're doing. And I don't have to necessarily tell all of you what that is. And again, this goes back to the idea of competitive advantage. But the other thing too that the competitive robotics has allowed us to do is to leverage that excitement and that momentum and that energy to build things out more broadly and kind of with that idea of equity in mind. And so going back to our three kind of buckets of how we build out programs, we offer a lot of exploration opportunities throughout the school year. We have summer camps, elementary through high school levels. We had 800 plus kids last year do that. We have a mobile lab that goes out to do outreach to schools and out beyond the district. We do elementary field trips on an ongoing basis. So that's that top of the funnel. And then education. One really neat thing that I don't know how many people know about is, again, 13 years ago, we had maybe one or two schools that were offering computer science at the secondary level or even engineering. Now all of our secondary schools are offering some level of robotics and computer science. And over 13 years, the enrollment of the students in these programs has increased at least 500%. Those are based on the numbers I've got. So that's a real value add as well to this, our competitive robotics. We offer then the experiences to be on project teams and work-based learning. So our Innovation Center offers 30 active project teams. These are paid opportunities for students. They're doing authentic work for real clients. We also offer internships and job shadows. Many of these relate to robotic-specific fields. And then STEM pathways. This is really developed broadly across the district. We have the Innovation Center. We've got robotics, our drone program, data science. Our sister program offers advanced manufacturing. We have an aerospace engineering program, a STEM academy, and 4 PTechs. All these have grown up over the last 13 years, and robotics has helped drive attention and interest in participating in them. So kind of to wrap up, 13 years ago, this is what robotics looked at to me, right? I had no idea what to do with it. I knew it was potential. It was like a pile of parts, just like a new team looking at all these parts to make a robot out of. But by intentional design, right? By robotics through design or excellence through design, by thinking as a system, working as a system, we're able to go from that pile of parts to having a highly competitive program that really produces value for our students, for our stakeholders, for our community, and is creating those workforce pipelines that we talk about. And again, by design is kind of the big theme too. Thank you. I really appreciate Tom and Mason the opportunity to share this work. And this has been the highlight of my career, absolutely, is being able to be involved with this program.
Axel, we had a question about mindsets and skill sets that were developed. You touched on it a few times. I want to ask you specifically about elementary. Where and how does robotics show up in elementary grades, and what do you think the benefit is?
I think our overall philosophy is the earlier you can start, the better. Our competitive robotics is primarily done through after-school clubs. We have some elementaries that have either like a STEM instructor or STEM special, so they're able to be exposed to coding and robotics through that. but that's not across all elementary schools. Our district talks a lot about foundation innovation. And what they mean by foundation is just to ensure students have all those strong foundational skills in reading, math, writing, and critical thinking. And so the focus really at elementary is to ensure kids are succeeding in those areas. They recognize that there's a lot of value in it. So almost all of our elementary schools do these programs, but it's not necessarily during the day.
Fantastic. Thanks for the overview of St. Vrain Valley School District robotics. Adam Kulaas, Tacoma Public Schools. Adam, I was doing an interview about 90 minutes ago, and I said you're probably one of the best examples of a district leader using design thinking to help a city imagine a better future. Tell us how tell us how you're doing that in robotics.
Yeah, so as often the case, I get to represent a lot of talented, highly committed individuals, not only in our district, but I think our city. And so I can't talk about Tacoma without just celebrating the level of partnership, and some of that'll get unpacked specific in this. But before I transition slides, this is I use a series of these pictures. This is one of my favorite pictures of all time. It happened, we run a 100 vendor try-a-trades experience in partnership with the city at our kind of major sporting dome every fall. And so this year we had some of our different robotics vendors and some of our computer science represented. And I think it really encapsulates what we're talking about today in terms of, and it's even outlined in the chat, but this opportunity, this yes and opportunity to start to reimagine all the way down to, this is double fun because I actually know this kid. He's 4 years old. He's in a pre-K program. His name is Liam, and this is one of my solution partners. And this is the robotic dog that I'm saving up for that I dropped in the chat. But it's just this cool image capture of kind of where we are from a mindset side in terms of robotics, AI, and all innovations. Tacoma's about 30,000 students. We have 12 high schools, 35 elementary schools, 13 middle schools, and just this rich, urban, beautifully diverse learning ecosystem. I always start lately because our work is so grounded, and it'll provide fun crossover in terms of robotics and where we're going with that around our pathway work. And so we've been sprinting for the last couple of years in sort of renovating and innovating what our pathway looks like, which feeds directly into this bigger picture continuum of learning, P20, right? And so partnerships beyond the diploma and this integration. And so everything filters through essentially crafting opportunities for youth wherever they are at, with sort of this launch pad of opportunities towards the end. We'll talk about some programming first. SAMI currently offers an ROV program that is, SAMI could be its own probably town hall, in that it is in our zoo, our Point Defiance Zoo. It's our city zoo, regional zoo, and we run full custom built robotics program there. So they don't use kits. They actually do the fab and the prototyping, and the zoo conveniently borders water in terms of our marina that's a partnership with Parks Tacoma. And so they actually integrate it into lots of different sustainability efforts and programs. They integrate into, we're getting into even like pylon, like truly application based, and it's pretty expansive in terms of where they're going. One of the funnest environments in our entire districts is in that lab, and watching kids go from pencil prototype all the way to product iterations, testing, ultimately prototyping again and making revisions. And truly, to Tom's point, really living this design thinking cycle. We also have launched our drone training program. And so all students have the access in terms of an industry recognized credential to an FAA certification beyond residential or recreational, And actually we have our first student who's actually starting to gig. And really there's like this multifaceted sort of mindset around, yes, we want to get them the credentials and turn into practical application, but we also want them to earn opportunities to essentially start exploring other applications that are very student-centered. So that program's exciting. So SodaBot started in 2008. This is just one of their team photos. I know we're tight on time. I'm watching it just because I can feel Mason watching it. Their website is extremely well built in terms of sharing all of their accolades. It's an absolute pride point for me in terms of getting to talk about them with just full disclosure. And even looking at their team photo, the amount of adults, whether they are educators within our system, adjunct instructors within our system, or community members, parents, really this just beautiful community of individuals that have been going for well over a decade now and engaging in really just high quality engagement around robotics. These are some more photos. Like I love going to the events, but even when I can't make it, just the capture of what they ultimately produce and in terms of the competition side of things is pretty exciting. It started at a school of the arts. So we have 3 partners, and we call them the partner schools. They're 3 innovative models that Getting Smart's talked quite a bit about. So you can always find more information on them, but it's really truly expanded across our district. And I think there's a fun part that is surfaced in some of the other presentations today around this intentionality of introduction and exploration at a much earlier age. And so I think from a priming standpoint and just helping kids understand or see what they don't know, I think that's one of our goals. And Sodabots is a really cool driver in being able to show actual physical evidence of what it can be to get kids excited. We're going to shift gears into some upcoming things. So the Maritime 253 Skills Center. Skills Centers are a unique model to Washington State. Every state has some iteration of them, but we will be the 18th Skills Center in the state of Washington, officially authorized by the state. And it will have fully maximize our the reality of having a global port in our city. So the Port of Tacoma, I can literally see it out my window, was an exciting opportunity and a decade-long conversation around how can we not only promote the future of work, but also enhance this opportunity to partner. And so this campus will house not only our skills center, but our port administration's offices. And it's just this rich learning environment. Now, beyond the beautiful aesthetics, when you break into the behind the walls, it has this really, really fun sort of integration. And we're leaning a lot into advanced CTE's kind of cluster, especially their cross-cutting opportunities. And so if you're familiar with that work, if you're in CTE land out there or you're not, it's worthy of a look for sure. But when you look at it and you get into like the digital technology side, there's these cross-cutting technologies around automation, around unmanned vehicles. And so this skills center will host 2 pathways, extremely relevant to robotics in terms of our mechatronics lab, and then also our actual unmanned vehicles pathway, which will do land, sea, and air, basically unmanned vehicles and robotics, all custom builds with applications in terms of even the other pathways. So there's a state sustainability lane. Our underwater robotics are currently, like I said, engaging in multiple elements of maximizing the fact that we have water and lots of different elements of that. And so the Skills Center is a fun working real example that will open in the fall of 26 that will amplify this high school opportunity to then travel backwards. A couple pictures. We currently run summer programming. It's everything we do revolves around giving kids actual credentials. All of our courses are also 100% articulations with college credit, which has been exciting with our post-diploma partners in terms of essentially rebooting our programming to align with those college credits to accelerate a student who wants to go into an advanced degree in robotics or anything connected. There's a photo on this slide that's kind of fun in terms of one of the student prototypes when they were actually doing some underwater data collection. And then finally, just because I am watching time, our latest and greatest sort of partnered opportunity, we house the LeMay, America's Car Museum. It opened in 2012. At any given time has 300 of the most beautiful, like classic automobiles history. It's 6 floors. And through conversations with them, we have officially are moving forward. Robotics Hub, I keep calling it the garage. Naming rights are not there yet, but I still I'm putting it out into the world. But this robotics, essentially innovation garage, and it will, once again, it'll host, it's like Tony Stark's lab meets like the Coliseum of Gladiator, right? And opportunities for competition based and enrichment, but also these kind of amplified maker spaces, tinker labs where they're building. It'll host regional competitions. The goal, I should be more correct, like my superintendent were on this, he'd say global. The desire is global competition with intentionality of physical space driving experience. So that's our latest and greatest, and I will stop there, but happy to answer any questions.
Adam, that's a very cool vision. I want to underscore that you have this amazing museum, and you're talking about building this companion space that could leverage it, but be different from it, and sort of imagine the next generation of mobility. Very cool opportunity for Tacoma. The Maritime Center is really, I think it's unique because you're imagining this as kind of a hub and spoke. So it's not just what happens in that building, it's the learning experiences that happen at partner schools and partner business sites. Is that fair? It's sort of a community vision.
Yeah, we just call it that's the hub, right? So it is absolutely a spoken hub kind of model, and then has these tentacles. It's got to stay nautical, right? These tentacles out into industry partners, businesses, even some of our community-based physical spaces, like the Foss Maritime Museum has been a great partner in terms of teaching spaces. We have a Youth Marine Foundation with a $4 million teaching vessel that ultimately we will find integration in terms of partnership. Even some of our larger industry partners like Toad Alaska is headquartered here, and they're doing some really cutting edge stuff in terms of alternative fuel. And what's fun for me, even the automation or the robotics side, like hull inspections that used to require divers and things like that are now shifting quickly with urgency for safety, for efficiency, to operators actually utilizing or maximizing robotics to do a lot of that work.
Josh asked a question earlier about sort of the mindsets and skill sets that you see younger learners, maybe elementary and middle grade learners developing through robotics. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, and I dropped a kind of a wordy thing in the chat, but I think for me, whenever I have an opportunity to watch, like the competitive robotics side is like beautiful on so many levels, right? You can see the personalization of what one student is getting out of the experience, tethered to the collaborative piece of a team, right? And multiple teams many times.
Yeah.
We do middle school jamboree, robotics jamboree every year. And so watching that's even more exciting because we're getting them younger in terms of priming. We are currently revamping. It's a pride point. Our state probably doesn't get excited, but we've submitted over 150 frameworks. So in Washington State, I have to submit a framework in order to authorize a new course. 150 frameworks in the last 2 years, and that might be conservative because we're seeing opportunities to essentially craft these pathways that then only enhances what our talented educators are delivering to kids. So from a mindset side, I think modeling a lot of that and saying that we're okay to renovate and here's how we're doing it is a fun sort of 30,000 foot example of what we're seeing kids get out of the bottom up experience.
Adam, you heard Axel put a competitive frame around a lot of what they do in St. Brain, and not just robotics, but they really want kids to have a competitive skill set and mindset. I think you like that. You're thinking about that with the garage. Is that a link to entrepreneurship, adaptability?
I think it's a link to resilience. Yes,
Okay.
I am a huge proponent of competition, like fostering growth and fostering success. I think when structured in a meaningful way, it becomes less of the I'm better than you and more of the we're getting better together. I even worked in our basically mantra of our district, right? Better, it's this state of better together. Like the newest one is team sport, right? And I see this as a really cool launch pad to really just engage youth in this sort of differentiated, right, bar setting in a category that I think is exciting and new.
Could I add to that in terms of building a real durable mindset? And we refer to durable skills, which I like. But one thing I appreciate again about robotics is that it's all done in a very authentic context. So you think about the whole SEL movement over the last 10 years or whatever, good stuff, well-meaning stuff, but it's not necessarily authentic all the time, right? And robotics, if you want to be successful as a robotics team, you got to get over all the little things, and you've got to work together as a team, and you've got to put up with, all the failures that happened and so forth and so on. So I think the authenticity of robotics is super, super powerful.
All right. Robotics as youth development. You've heard it here. Two great examples from St. Vrain and from Tacoma Public Schools. Ritch Ramey, thanks for kicking us off with an overview of where robotics and robotics ed are going. Mason, take us out.
Yeah, thank you, Rich, Axel, and Adam for joining us today and sharing such wonderful things. We've got, as always, my email there. If you're working on robotics and you want to put something up on our blog, feel free to shoot me a note, mason@gettingsmart.com. We also have our next town hall coming up. I just dropped a link in the chat. We're going to be looking at state R&D capacity, co-hosting that with Education Reimagined. We're taking a look at Virginia and North Carolina's approach to state R&D, and we'll be joined by some of their state level teams. So we're super excited to keep going with all of you, and just thank you for joining, sharing generously, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Getting Smart podcast today. We want this podcast to be actionable, insightful, and a great way to learn about what's next in learning. In order to stay on the cutting edge, we need people in the field to tell us what they're hearing, what they're wanting, and what they're needing to learn more about. Got a topic or a guest in mind? Send your recommendations to me, Mason@gettingsmart.com. And if you like what you're hearing, don't forget to leave a review in Apple Podcasts or subscribe wherever you listen. Feel free to share the podcast on social media using the hashtag GSPodcasts. Thanks so much.